Today we're going to learn how to make a basic felt pouch for fashion design. This felt pouch you can use to store just about anything. If you have school supplies, you can place them in there. If you have glasses or sunglasses you want to keep safe, you can also secure them in the pouch. Good for a lot of different things, and this only requires you to know how to do an overcast stitch on the edges and sew on a button. So let's go ahead and get started. We have some basic supplies. I have felt, a pair of scissors, pins. If you don't have straight pins, you can use safety pins, and some buttons to choose from, along with some thread to sew up my sides. Now I have an example that I have already started, but I'm going to show you how to get started, and then I'm going to progress you through the steps. So you may have to pause the video and go back if you missed a step or you need to re-watch a step. So the first thing to do to get ready is we're going to fold our fabric. We are going to put our fabric vertically and fold up the bottom of our fabric so it's about 1.5 to 2 inches from the top. If you would like to use a ruler, you can. You'll see that I have folded my fabric up to approximately 1 3/4 inches. Now I want to secure both sides of my fabric. So I'm going to do that with some straight pins. As I said, if you've got safety pins, those will work just fine. All right. Now, once I have my needle threaded and I have my thread knotted at the end, I am going to bring my needle up through in between the two layers of fabric, and I am going to pull my needle all the way through, and I am going to start an overcast stitch over the edge. So I'm simply going to bring my needle over to the back side and wrap it around. My first stitch wanted to fold over the edge, which is okay. I'm going to move it into place, and I'm going to simply do an overcast stitch over the edge of my fabric. And you might need to slide your stitches over a little bit to line them up. That's perfectly okay. And I'm going to continue sewing all the way up to the top edge. Once I make it up to the top edge, I'm going to bring my needle through the back of my fabric, but not through the front. I am going to pull it through, and I am going to create a knot on the inside. And I'm going to do this by catching this piece of thread right here and bringing my thread through and creating a loop. Then I'm going to wrap the thread around my needle twice and create a knot. And that knot is now hidden on the inside of my pouch. I can take my scissors and simply snip through my threads. Now I'm going to prepare my needle to sew up the other side. Now you can see that I am sewing my overcast stitch up my second side of my pouch. And by the way, you'll notice that I'm rotating my sewing. Sometimes one position is more comfortable than the other. And I kind of wanted to demonstrate that if it doesn't feel right, then change positions, because sometimes what is comfortable for one sewist is not comfortable for another sewist. And we're almost up at the top. And now I'm going to do my final stitch and come around to the back, and I'm going to put my knot on the inside. And if you are a beginning sewist, that is someone who sews, it is okay not to have your stitches perfect. You are at that learning stage. Here we go. We've got two edges sewn up now, and we're going to trim that off. By the way, if you're worried about your knots coming undone, what you can do is put a little bit of either like white glue, like Elmer's glue, or some nail polish on those two knots and the ones down here if you want to, and that will secure the knots. Just make sure that you let the glue dry before you do anything. Now the second thing that you are going to need is a button for your pouch. I happen to have a turquoise and a pink button for my choices here. I have a little larger black one, but I like the color on the yellow, so I'm simply going to let's go with the turquoise today. Now you'll notice I'm also taking my pins out and I'm putting those away. An important thing when you are sewing is to make sure that you take care of your supplies. No one wants to step on a needle. Now I am going to take my button here and I am going to find the center of my fabric. So to do that, I am going to fold my fabric in half, and that is the center. And I next need to mark the top and the bottom of my button to create a buttonhole. So I have my trusty Sharpie marker here. You can use a pen or a pencil, and I am marking the top and bottom edge of my button. That is to show this is the space where I need to cut to create a buttonhole. Now I also need a place to sew my button on, and I'm going to put that down here at the bottom of my pouch. And I'm just going to kind of line back up if I want to. I've got a ruler here to kind of help me out. I'm going to mark where I want to sew that button on, and you'll see there are two dots right there for my button. Put my pen away. Now, I am going to cut this space between my two button markings. To do this, I like to take a pin to line them up. So I take a pin. Again, you can use a safety pin if you do not have a sewing pin. And I fold my fabric in half so my needle is going straight through. I know things are lined up. And I am going to cut almost to that needle, but not quite. Almost, but not quite. I want my buttonhole to be just a little bit smaller than my actual button. And you'll see I now have a small slit in my fabric for my buttonhole. And the other thing I do is I check to make sure I can slide my button through. It went all the way through, so it's the right size. Now I am going to sew my button onto my fabric. I'm going to take the remainder of the thread that I had for sewing up my overcast stitch, and I'm simply going to make a basic overhand knot. And I'm going to open up my pouch, and I'm going to go through the fabric through one of those marks that I made with my marker. Now I'm going to take my button and pull it through. Then I am going to put my needle through my button and go through my other marked hole, and I'm pulling the thread through. I am going to go through my button a second time, and when I'm going through, I'm going to go through or try to go through the exact same place. So you'll see that I've gone through the button. Might take you a couple of times to get it through the right way. Be patient. And then I'm going back through to the inside. Now I'm going to fold this over so that you can see how I'm going to end this. You'll notice there is this stitch right here. I am going to take my needle and go underneath this stitch. And I'm going to take my thread, wrap it around my needle once and twice, and then gently pull my thread to make a secure knot. Again, if you're worried about your knots, just make sure that you either add a little dot of glue or nail polish to it. And there we have it. We have our basic felt pouch, which can be used for just about anything that you might want to hold and keep safe. By the way, you can do this in different colors. Here's an example of a pink one, and also an orange one. Great for makeup, great for pens and pencils, great for sewing supplies, great for glasses. Can be done in about 15 minutes to 30 minutes.